right, Chief. Well, how challenging has this week been by comparison to other weeks in your tenure as head coach here?
Look, it was very disappointing, the result. I think the whole playing group was gutted. I don't want to go out and, be, all doom and gloom. But it was, to concede 6 in a derby, it's unacceptable. The players know that. It wasn't for a lack of trying. They did everything they did, I asked of. And, there was a couple of, factors probably that played into the result blowing out the way it did. I think in the back of my mind as well, I was always also looking forward to a couple of games and trying to get players minutes where they needed to, like players like Marco, Roofs as well. Paney played longer than expected. Chico played longer than expected. So, in the end, even at 4-1, I think the boys fatigued quite hard. That's on me. But again, I think we had probably 10 minutes where it was just a bit of a brain fade. We got bullied. They scored 3 goals and you go into half time. It doesn't matter how well you plan. It's a big deficit, especially against a team that's coming first. And they're first for a reason. And but I was actually really happy with the first 15, 20 minutes of that second half. We chased the game, put a lot of pressure on them. We scored. I felt we had momentum, and I would have liked to have seen a second goal, and then maybe it would have been a different game.
So what strategies have you used this week or have you had to lift players up, particularly young players who haven't experienced something like this before?
Yeah, look, it's more about... It's probably more about making sure that there's not an overreaction, because a lot of these things become very emotional. Everyone's upset, fans, so they should be. Everyone that's involved in the club and so on. But again, I try to focus out and make sure that I'm looking at bigger picture and so on. If I felt as though there was a lack of will or lack of trying on the players' part, I would have been absolutely on top of them. Players know. So this week's more about steadying the ship and refocusing on all the good things that we've been doing throughout the season, and make sure the focus is on City and nothing else.
Does the ship feel steadied to you a day out?
No, I feel fine. The playing group's fine. The boys are in a good mood. We've had a couple of chats, as a collective, and just more about a refocus. And there's a belief in the group that one positive result will change your season.
Was it a tough 48 hours for you personally after the full-time whistle blew?
I'm the worst loser, Piney. It burns me, even when I lose friendly matches in pre-season. It bites me. So I'm a person that I don't process things until the week. So I get more angry as the week goes on. Even when we're winning, it's there's a lot of things that I just I process later. But again, and I stress, if it was for a lack of trying or a lack of execution of the game plan, then I would be infuriated. The boys gave me everything, and that's all I can ask for. So there is a good side to that.
Cool. Just a couple of player inquiries. Alex Rufer had 45 on the weekend.
Yep.
Could he be in contention to start tomorrow?
I think he'd be closer to starting tomorrow. We'll have to see how he recovers from training today. It's been a process with him. It's again, exposure. I don't want him to relapse. There's a bit of a risk that if we don't manage him well, they could go backwards. And for us, he's a vital player. You've seen already 2 games, even on the weekend. It wasn't 100%, but he gave me everything. But you can see his quality. So I'd love him to start. To be fair, all the injured boys, the senior boys, I'd love them to all start. But that's also a management issue.
And Chico Giraldi's, the fact you gave him 90 minutes, 94 minutes, whatever it was, will that impact his involvement tomorrow night, or could he go again, for example, and start and play the majority of the game?
So the plan was 45 with Chico,
right?
And I thought it was 45 minutes at a time, and so that's 2 lots of 45. So, but the physio made it clear that it was only just for 45. I went off his I went off his feel at half time. I said to him, I'll push you as long as you feel comfortable. 55, he said, I'm fine. 65, and I think you saw his quality. I didn't want to take him off because he was still looking for the ball at 4-1, 5-1. He's still running, still working hard, and a really good player to have.
What's his level in terms of what you expected? Did you expect him to be that lively and I guess with the ball?
Yes, that's why I brought him in. And I scouted him a while back, and for me, he's just a quality player, and will give us another dimension in the team. It's just a matter of now getting, everyone, working around him, and him finding combinations, some cohesion as well with some other players, and hopefully that he can start providing Costa and the other forwards some valuable service.
And Marco, a successful return for him. Can we expect to see his, work amount of time on the pitch increase, or still sort of a similar amount?
Yeah, for me, it's more about last week. I think he got 20. Again, starting would be it would be high risk, a little bit like not similar to Roofs, but same sort of thinking. Again, I want to give him as much time as he can, but also have to worry about his his overall health, because I think if we can build him to 30, 35. Then the next week, can give him a little bit more, and then, hopefully after the international break, even more time.
And I guess a bright spot of that loss was Luke and his goal. Can you just talk a little bit about his story and his ability and possibly his potential as well?
Yeah, I've been a big believer of Luke. That I literally signed him after just watching him for a week. Physically, he's got everything. He's got a bit of unpredictability, uncertainty. Still, a young kid, still needs to mature, understand the landscape, build into games and that. But I mean, his progression, I think, has been very healthy. He started against Newcastle, played about 45, played against City, made a chance against City. And then he's been on and off the bench, making game day squads. He hasn't really been phased too much, And for me, the most marked improvement was when we played him against Victory. He came on and he actually had a positive contribution, almost made a chance, and he should have scored. So for me, I look at that and I think, okay, that means he's starting to find his feet. So I don't have any fears or trepidations about him coming on and trying to change the game. So the fact that he's 16 is even better, because he's all about enthusiasm, and you saw in that game. To be fair, I thought he pinned Sakai quite well, made it very difficult for him, and changed the game.
Touched on his age. For those of us who don't get to scout 16-year-olds, for our job, how good is he for 16?
That's why I signed him. No, it's great. For me, it's just again, I think the biggest thing when you bring a young player in, the difference is if you have technically competent, and you've got a great touch and so on. The big question mark is the physicality. Whereas he answered the physicality first, and then he had a touch, and he's got a little bit of X factor. So, playing him against men consistently, I have no problem putting him in that environment. So for me, you can accelerate his learning.
Just last one on Luke. He said when he sat down and wrote goals that the World Cup was a big goal or dream of his. Do you think that's realistic?
Anything's realistic. I had a player here 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. I had a conversation with him. He wasn't even making game day squads, and he ended up going to a World Cup. I mean, you can work that out yourself, who that player is. But it was more about, you're always 2 or 3 performances away from changing people's opinion, And I think that, if he goes out and he starts scoring regularly now, why can't he go to a World Cup? He's got a bit of X factor about him. My big fear for all the young players is how to pull them back in and, measure their expectations and, making sure that they don't get, easily influenced by outside noises. That's probably the hardest part.
And healthy, obviously we want players to progress with their injuries healthily and speedily. How quickly could you envision Chico, Marco and Alex all sort of starting together?
And Hideki.
Just
and Luke, maybe. It depends. It really depends on how I find the combinations, training. Again, I think that, that happens organically. Are we running out of time? Yes. But the fact that we have players that can now change the game off the bench, that gives us also another dimension, as opposed to just us grinding, trying to stay in the game, look for goals and so on. Now we can actually, be more on the front foot.
You touched on time there. You said before the Auckland game that the Auckland game and tomorrow's game were the important games.
Yes.
Can you still make the 6, do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I don't even know what we're on, 19 points. I think we need 7 wins. I think there's 9 games left. We can win 7. We can definitely win. We could win all our games. Again, just need one result. One result will turn the season. Again, like anything, when you go through, a bit of a form slump, confidence is low and so on, sometimes it's easy to forget how good of a team you are. It's just that's more about the group, galvanising themselves and working hard and making sure they stick to their principles and so on. It just takes one moment, That game against Auckland as well, there's so many talking points that could have turned the game very quickly, and it didn't. But it seems to be a running theme over the last 3-4 weeks. Everything's kind of going against us. But one of those moments change, and then our season changes as well.
So 40 points is the goal from here.
Enough to get us into the 6. Yeah, whatever it is.
A few questions from Andrew Vorman stuff as well on that subject. I think you just touched on.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any replays of Nando Peinika's tackle on Corbin Piper, and should he have been sent off?
I didn't need to see a replay. I thought it was a red card. First instinct, I think I was the only one in the stadium jumping up and down. I stick by it. I think I don't understand the confusion when the process, when I was talking to the fourth official about being last man. That wasn't the issue. The issue was the recklessness of the challenge and where the foot struck the leg. I've seen a lot of derbies where players have been given red cards where they don't know where the contact's coming from, so they don't see their player in the peripheral vision. They hit their foot above ankle height and they're given red cards. That for me is above the ankle, knowing where the player is, and was a very dangerous challenge. And the thing is Corbs is still limping. It was a bad challenge. He got through the whole game. So again, I was disappointed with the decision. I think it's a clear red. I think I was also disappointed looking back at the third goal. I think Logan Rogerson's goal. He even admitted in the press conference after or post match that hit his hand and that was in a natural position. For me, it's like, VAR should be able to pick that up. If it's blatant and the players admit it. But anyway, that's not an excuse. It's done. Again, we've had several turning points in the last 3 or 4 weeks. It probably runs with the theme of how our season's going at the moment. We're not getting the rub of the green, but it's not an excuse. They still won 6-1, and deservedly.
How might a red card have changed the game?
Yeah. Look, it doesn't matter. It's like it's done. It would have helped us for sure. I don't think we would have got that result. But I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for the performance and the result.
Has the referee's boss offered an explanation as to why it wasn't a red?
You probably have to ask him. He gave an explanation to us, and probably need to ask them for an official statement.
And were there any other calls in the match you were concerned about other than obviously that?
No, look, maybe the second yellow where Costa gets fouled. I thought that was a little bit unfair. That could have also been a red, but look, again, that's done.
Why was Paolo Retre absent last week, and will he be back?
Yeah, so he had on the -1, he was starting, and then he pulled up with a calf issue. So it was a risk to start him, and so we pulled him out of the game last minute.